Okay, we all good? Well, first, Denny, if you can just introduce yourself to everyone, tell us a little bit about what you do at Ring.
Yeah, so I joined Ring about 4 months ago. Great timing, right before Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Also decided to have a kid around that time, so I was out for about 3 or 2 weeks. So I had about a whole month to prepare for both, but that was great. But before that, I was at US Auto Parts for 4 years, handling the performance and digital marketing, where we had very large data feeds. I think our largest feed was about 18 million products, which we had to manage.
Okay, well, in terms of, so obviously Ring, you haven't been there too long, but just your experience in e-commerce, how have you leveraged Google Shopping?
Yeah, so personally, I'm a pretty big fan of Google Shopping. I think it's a great way. The platform itself is kind of like an automation in terms of keyword scaling, because you're able to scale your entire catalog across the whole auction place on Google. So with that comes a lot of risk, because everything you put in the descriptions, everything you put in the titles is kind of fair game for Google to match up against. So in order to make sure that you're optimizing around that, probably the most important part of making sure that your shopping is successful is that you have a really good shopping structure in terms of both the shopping feed and in terms of how you're setting your different segmentations. Back at US Auto Parts, we were very net profit focused. So essentially we made sure that we had all of the net profit data feeding back into the actual feed so that we were able to do our segmentations that way and make sure that we were bidding optimally against that. And in addition to that, I highly recommend using query funneling. If you're not using that currently, you're really kind of at the will of Google. And kind of generally what I've seen when you bid higher, generally in shopping, it'll kind of give you more clicks around those very generic, broad keywords. So having query funneling is really important as well.
Well, because you say you are a fan of it, and because we have good and bad with everything, so let's stick with the good. What else, why else should other people say, okay, yes, this is something that's worthwhile if we do it correctly?
Yeah, so back at US Auto Parts, it was essentially just me and one other person handling the full catalog. I think if we were to try and scale that against keywords and text ads, it would take a lot more time. And actually, sometime around 2017, we decided to leverage our Google feeds in order to build out very granular ad copy and very granular keywords around year, make, and model combinations. Initially, we saw great success because we were able to surface the price point for the specific product that the user was looking for and target them specifically on the keyword. In the span of just within a year, from 2017 to 2018, I saw the inventory available for those keyword bids shrink massively. I think they went down around 60% in terms of impressions at the same bids.
Well, and also, I mean, I think some people you talk to, they feel like, and you even mentioned, obviously, in terms of a staffing situation, it made it easier for you because it was so simple, but that it's much more targeted or more geared towards smaller businesses, in the sense that maybe otherwise it's not as creative, it's not as, someone mentioned that I spoke with, I won't name, but said it's kind of dumbing down media, in terms of what we're doing. What do you say to that, or do you agree?
So yeah, because of the way that shopping is structured, you can't be quite as creative with the actual visual copy. Sure, you can change your product image, but Google has very strict standards on what you can actually display there. It has to be product focused, so you can't really do a lot of lifestyle imagery. You'd have to use the Showcase shopping ad platform to do that, which hits on more upper funnel keywords. But the core of shopping, there is a little bit less creativity. The creativity really comes in probably the product titles. That probably has the largest impact on what queries you're hitting in terms of the product feed. So kind of segueing into what I think is probably the second most important part about shopping is that you need to make sure that you're in touch with your e-commerce department and your catalog department to make sure that all of your data is structured in a logical fashion, because anything that gets thrown off on that end will hit your feed generation, and then your rules could go haywire. So, and in turn, that ends up impacting the keywords you hit. And if you're not prepared for that, it's a bad day. And Yeah, that's not even counting like feed disqualifications if, like, say, the image went off or something like that.
Well, and also, what about in terms of, does it make it easier for bidding with the targeting tools, for enhanced search, or I'm sorry, search audiences or customer lists? Is that something that can get past that and you can get more? A lot of people don't feel like they're getting specific enough of an audience. And does that help you in any way? Or does it help you enough, basically?
Yeah, so I'd say broadly, for sure, that in terms of more non-brand keywords and probably things that are more upper funnel that hit shopping, it's really important to make sure you have audiences layered on top, whether it be your first-party customer match lists or, the first-party data you're getting from GA and creating audiences. It's important to constantly reiterate on those and basically evaluate the performance. And, the performance of each individual audience on every single product segment is not going to be the same. So sometimes you have to get really granular in terms of the different bid modifiers you're doing. And in some cases where your CPCs are hitting like $30 or $20, you're gonna have to go straight to targeting.
Well, you also, when we were talking earlier, you talked about how it's important to match the creative to a specific target audience. And how does that come into play, and what do people need to do in terms of getting ready for that?
Yeah, so I would suggest definitely tapping into your backend data to see what kind of product affinities and market basket that your customers have. And that way you can collect specific customer audience match lists for users who've bought product A, and then you can really bid up on those users on product B to make sure that you're cross-selling and upselling to them at the right time. Because Google Shopping itself is a highly competitive field. It's only grown year over year. Every single year the CPCs go up and up, and the inventory hasn't quite grown as much as Google would have liked it to grow. So it's just getting more and more competitive. So in order to squeeze out that efficiency, you really have to start utilizing this.
Well, also, I mean, speaking with, does it kind of give you pause to put all of your trust into Google, the company that you're actually paying to do this, and they're the ones telling you what you need to do, and it seems like they can kind of say what they want to keep that control, and that may be concerning, especially if you're sort of in the dark, again, with transparency.
Yeah, so this kind of, and I definitely have concerns about that every day. Google itself is growing more and more massive in terms of market share, especially in the search space. I used to work at PriceGrabber. All the CSEs, that whole business got wiped out by Google, essentially. So I can kind of see the scale of how Google can kind of take over market share. I would say at the end of the day, to kind of really understand Google's motivations behind every single one of their products. In terms of smart shopping, Google, they see a hesitation of, some smaller businesses or people trying to get into Google shopping because it is a little more technical. You have to have a good product feed, et cetera, to participate. It's very competitive. So, smart shopping makes it very easy in order to set up the campaigns, but in turn, you're giving up a lot of control. There's no real easy way, for example, to pull query reports for smart shopping, and there's no way to put negatives against it. So it's kind of really a black box. So I would say, definitely if you were to test smart shopping, to try and make a really good A/B test framework, either running on, different parallel products that have equivalent historical data, and then kind of evaluate the performance on your back end. The other part that makes it sort of difficult to do that is because the smart shopping impacts on more inventory than just the Google Shopping platform. It goes onto YouTube, it goes onto display as well. So making sure you try and set a test with good parity is very important. And lastly, back to kind of the ability to be able to pull queries, I find that to be very detrimental because that's also one really great way, which I use for query farming, to actually build out some of my text ads as well. So losing that ability to easily do that is not great.
Well, and obviously you say you are a fan still of Google Shopping, but I'm sure everything needs improvement. What would be the things, or at least the main thing, that you would add to make it a better place for you?
Yeah, so overall, what I talked about in terms of transparency, I think Google needs to reveal more data to search marketers so that users are able to verify that the black box is doing what Google says it does, which is basically optimizing against keywords and auctions and audiences. For example, that's one thing and why I utilize enhanced CPC, because with enhanced CPC, I can actually look at the query level data, see what the CPCs are, and historically I've seen really great lifts with eCPC in conjunction with like query structuring and all the traditional kind of shopping elements.
Great. Well, before I finish with you, I do want to open up to the room. Is there any questions that anyone has for Denny? Anything? No? Well, then I want to finally finish it off with you. Basically, what advice do you give? If someone's either just starting getting involved with Google Smart Shopping, or maybe they're involved, but what are the #1 things they need to be doing and not doing?
Yeah, so making sure that you have good back-end measurement to run that A/B test in order to ensure that smart shopping is actually lifting your overall conversion. Also, one thing that I didn't talk about was DDA, making sure that your attribution modeling is set up well on the platform. Personally, we're using currently Search Ads 360 DDA, and I've seen really good success. And what I like about that is you can map it against your search ads and also your shopping ads and kind of see the full impact around that.
So you say don't completely embrace it, but it's still something important for people to be doing.
Yeah, and you know, I've talked to a bunch of agencies, and all of them kind of see the direction that Google is heading towards. So it could be inevitable in the next few years that we're all forced onto smart shopping. So it's just a matter of how we do it, how we prepare for that inevitable conclusion.
Well, and now hopefully everyone's a little bit more prepared after you, Denny. So thank you. This is great.
Oh, thank you.